All right. So yeah, we're gonna get this Grand Strand chapter meeting started. My name is Tierney Rosenstock. For those of you who don't know me, I am the vice president of the chapter, and I will be leading the meeting this evening. Here's our agenda for this evening. We'll do a little bit of housekeeping regarding chapter organization and chapter memberships. And then we'll have our featured speaker, followed by plant of the month. And we've got some really exciting upcoming events for everybody. And then we'll turn it over to you for some member updates if you have things to share, and then hopefully allow for some time for everybody to just grow your roots and mingle. I know a lot of you have heard this spiel before, but we're always trying to drum up membership because a portion of the proceeds does go directly back to this chapter and helps fund various events and tabling materials and education materials and things of that nature. We are now at 60 members. Woo! So that's great, especially for being such a young chapter. So we're very excited about that. And that joins over 1,000 members statewide. I think we were at 1,075-ish for the state. We are still looking for officers and committee chairs. If anybody is interested in getting more involved and helping us out. A lot of us are sort of doing double duty at the moment, and we can sustain that for a while, but we will need more help as we grow and develop and have more activities. So mainly we're looking for a treasurer and a secretary, but we're also looking for a membership chair, communications, publicity, and then we'll have other committee opportunities as well. Including some of the groups from the very first meeting on getting education. So working on education projects, getting dirty, working on projects and collaborating with other organizations to get our hands in the dirt and create display gardens or remove invasive species, and also helping to get plants in the area. And I have an opportunity coming up later in the meeting regarding that specifically. And if you have any interest, obviously email us, talk to one of us at the end of the meeting, or you can use your smartphone and this will link you to more information. Our responsibilities regarding these positions is sort of being developed based on other chapters. Right now, the main thing is that we have a steering committee meeting on the first Monday of every month. With obvious adjustments for holidays and other things like that. But it will help us lead and advance chapter goals, helping us take initiatives on chapter activities, and also representing the chapter at tabling events and other outreach events. We have definitely had quite a few of those already. So it's always helpful to have more people to help get the word out there. Maeve, do you want to talk a little bit about?
Sure. Yeah, just to recap our June field trip, we had a tour of Coastal's Arboretum led by Dominique Callaganon, and it was a really great turnout. This field trip actually filled up really fast, so I think it's one we'll repeat again. The Arboretum is a fairly new project for Coastal, so it was really cool to hear about how that was developed and some of the plans that they have for the future. In the picture, you can see we were in the native plant section of the Arboretum, which had a lot of trees that were sort of preserved on the campus. That was actually how the Arboretum got started, was a section of campus that was going to be cleared, and instead they said, nope, let's make it an Arboretum. And then that was a really beautiful specimen magnolia on campus. So I know some of you were there. I hope everyone had a great time. It was really hot, but I think it was a really good event that we will repeat in the future.
Great job.
Oh, thank you.
Great.
And like I said, we've done a bunch of tabling events. We've been at 2 different Brook Green events. We were there for Earth Day as well as their plant sale. And we were at the Swamp Summit in March. And most recently, we were at a PFLAG event. And Aaron or Kara want to report out on that event? Neither one of them?
I think Aaron's gone. Yeah, we went to Holly's Island's PFLAG community event a couple weekends ago. It was very much a really great just community event celebrating diversity, and everybody had a really great time. We set up our table and Victoria had this really beautiful rainbow plant list of different colors since it was a Pride event. And we got a lot of great people coming up and asking us about how they can start getting more native plants into their gardens. So it was really cool. And I think we might have recruited some new members there too. So we had fun. It was a very positive and fun event. We loved it.
Thank you, Kara.
Sure.
So if at any time you all come into the information that there's some event like this where they're going to have information tables, send them our way, because maybe we didn't see that or we haven't heard about it, so that we have the opportunity to try to have an outreach table there. We don't have a slide for it, but I also gave a presentation to the Grand Strand Shell Club. They invited us down, and I gave an overview of the Native Plant Society and why native plants are important. And then I kind of tried to tie it in, and I gave them some profiles of some native beach plants that they might see where they were out doing, shell club things. And they were really warm, really receptive, a great crowd. And we got lots of signups for our newsletter from that as well. So hopefully recruited some new faces. Maeve?
And Mike, you can add anything that I miss, but yeah, we had sort of an impromptu call for volunteers. We had a request from Huntington Beach State Park that they had over 100 endangered sea beach amaranth plants, which we're going to hear more about in our presentation today. But they really needed to get those in the ground before the 4th of July week, when things just get crazy in the park. So we put out a call, and we had 3 awesome volunteers, and I guess myself, come out to the park, and we spent the morning planting them in the dunes. And these plants were actually, I didn't know this, but they were started at Brook Green Gardens. I'm sure Mike can tell us more about that. So it was really great to get those in the ground, and maybe we'll get to see how they're doing on our field trip this weekend.
And actually impromptu, what made it means is we actually ran into each other at the CB outpost in Mount Pleasant. Well, she was on her way to a concert, and I was coming back from an environmental educators conference. Like, oh, great to see you. Oh, by the way, I can help with this. Do you think we can do this? Like, sure.
Yeah.
So I very much appreciate the help.
That was some spontaneous plant conservation in action. So huge thank you to the volunteers that came out for that, and thanks, Mike, for reaching out for the with the opportunity.
Don't sit down.
All right, well, I guess we sort of foreshadowed our presentation today. Our guest speaker is Ranger Mike Walker, and we're so excited for Mike to speak to us today. I remember at our first meeting when we were brainstorming activities that we wanted the chapter to do, someone said we should get some celebrity speakers, and I was like, we have a celebrity speaker right here. Because if you don't know, Ranger Mike Walker might be familiar to you from the Nickelodeon TV show Bella Island, which I grew up watching. And he's also a ranger at Huntington Beach State Park. He was recently featured in the Coastal Observer with a really nice bio. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ranger Mike.
Do we have a PowerPoint?
Yeah, it should just be minimized.
Oh, okay.
It's the next tab over.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you all so very much. So by the way, that introduction photo where I'm like pointing at the sign, what I'm actually pointing at, that's how high the storm surge was for Hurricane Ian. So by the way, y'all remember Hurricane Ian last day of September last year? Totally unexpected here. It was supposed to, after ravaging the Gulf Coast of Florida, it was supposed to hit Charleston at low tide. It hit us at high tide. We were not evacuated. The park was not closed. We were actually at work when that happened. And we had one high tide. And then in a matter of about 20 minutes, we had an extra high tide pile on top of that. And it was quite insane. My boss literally got flooded out of her home and had to swim literally for the life of her dogs up to the office. So that's what I'm pointing at. That's really how high the word got. But what I am here to talk about today is sea beach amaranth. How many of y'all have heard of sea beach amaranth? Be honest. Really? Wow. Okay. How many of y'all have heard of sea beach amaranth from somebody other than me? Okay. All right. So sea beach amaranth is honestly, it's a fairly obscure plant. It is actually federally listed as a threatened species with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So this is a plant whose natural range would have been from about the Charleston area in South Carolina up into New England. Now it is a plant, I sometimes describe it as it lives fast and it dies young. It is a very short-lived animal. This plant normally pops up. I've never seen it before May. And then normally by September and August, it started to go to seed. And normally by the end of September, it's gone. Its whole life cycle has been completed. Now, unfortunately, the reason it's threatened, we believe has to do with manipulation of coastline. It doesn't do well with feature nourishment or hardening of the coast. Does not do well with development. It needs wild natural beaches. We believe that the ocean itself is an important vector for spreading the seeds around. And I would have to agree with this because I've noticed at the park, what we've been doing with working with the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Department of Natural Resources and some other partners over the years is trying to get the plants back out there in the sand dunes, produce many seeds to get those seeds kind of back out there. And I've noticed whenever we find naturally recruited plants, which by the way, Saturday's field trip, y'all are going to be helping us with that. They tend to be always south of where we have done a reintroduction plot. And generally along the coast of South Carolina are along shore current. That's the current when you go swimming in at the beach, kind of slowly get thrown down the beach. That's the along shore current. Generally runs north to south, and it does seem to be carrying the seeds down. Another reason we think the ocean has a big impact on the distribution of this plant was had just about disappeared in New England until Hurricane Sandy, and then it started popping up everywhere. So here in South Carolina, I'm going to talk to y'all a little bit about the kind of the history of trying to get something going, but trying to save this plant. By the way, Huntington Beach State Park, we were kind of the last vestiges left of sea beach amaranth in South Carolina, along with a few plants just north of us in Garden City Beach. And I just realized I did not get a lesson on how to advance the slides.
No,
Oh, there you go. All right, thank you. All right. So our very first efforts at reintroduction were actually done with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources with a fisheries biologist who realized that down at the Waddell Mariculture Center in Bluffton, they had empty space that could be used as a greenhouse. So he was looking for something to cultivate in the greenhouse, and he realized that this is a plant that was in trouble. So the very first reintroduction plot was actually at Huntington Beach State Park in 2000. Now, see this orange sign up here that everybody sees these on the beach as sea turtle signs? That's not a sea turtle sign. That's a sea beach amaranth sign. This is the newly planted very first sea beach amaranth plot is right underneath this leatherback sea turtle. This is the only leatherback sea turtle nest we've ever had at the park. And seabeach amaranth is a threatened species. This is an endangered species. And it's showing the threatened species who's boss. So took out that whole plot there. But we didn't give up. We continued on. And this working with the Department of Natural Resources, this project kind of spread up and down the coast. I was actually at Hunting Island when this happened, so I didn't actually see this. Steve Roth, who was the park naturalist at Huntington at the time, was fortunate enough to get the photos of this. And then after a couple of years, people began to question what the natural range of it was. So we decided that we're going to draw the line at Charleston. It had to be from Charleston northward. And then after a few years, the Fish and Wildlife Service took over the project. And they began taking seeds from the park and growing them at a nursery on Oak Island in North Carolina and using them for restoration projects at beaches in the Carolinas. Unfortunately, eventually the biologist who was in charge of that project, Ed Daly, retired, and nobody kind of stepped up. And because it was kind of an obscure plant to begin with, let's be honest, people just kind of forgot about it, so nothing happened. Then the next stage of this actually continued with beach vitex. How many of y'all have heard of beach vitex? That's a very nasty plant. And we'll be talking more about that on Saturday. It's a very invasive exotic plant species. But the park we were part of the original beach vitex task force. And when we were dealing with beach vitex in kudzu of the coast, we realized that once you remove the invasive plant, you had to have something to replant in those vulnerable sand dunes. And at that time, there were no nurseries dealing with that. So we developed a partnership, once again, working with the Fish and Wildlife Service and Coastal Ecoscapes, which is a nursery in Painter. And we provided seeds and cuttings from native sand dune plants at Huntington Beach State Park that they could then grow in their greenhouse to offer a native plant alternative to homeowners that were removing the beach vitex from their sand dunes. And in return, they grew sea oats and other plants for other state parks like Hunting Island State Park and Edison Beach State Park. And then they would also grow some seabeach amaranth plants for us. Unfortunately, after a few years, Jerry Dudley, who was the owner, he got a job at DHEC, and we had less and less time spent at the greenhouse, and then eventually it folded. So things with seabeach amaranth kind of disappeared for a number of years until Hurricane Matthew hit the coast. And when Hurricane Matthew hit the coast, it took out the power to my house for like 10 days. Forcing me to finally completely clean out my refrigerator. And in the loaded hole in the very back recess, I found a bag of sand that had seaweed amaranth sand seed there. So this was a boom that also happened the very week that the Fish and Wildlife Service hired a new botanist. And one of April Huntsman's very first projects was to start a South Carolina plant conservation alliance. And we would have yearly meetings at Riverbanks. And at the very inaugural first meeting, we had a conversation with folks from the Fish and Wildlife Service, folks from the North Carolina Botanical Garden who had been growing plants for the Fish and Wildlife Service. And so all the partners you need were in the room. And we were like, well, so basically I was going to send them the seeds, and I'm going to have to drive to North Carolina to pick up the plants and bring them back for replanting in the sand dunes. So I'm like, yeah, it's a good plan, but that's a lot of driving. We're like, I wonder if there's a botanical garden closer to the park. And that's where our friends at Berkeley Garden entered the equation. So being right across the street, and Berkeley Gardens is developed on a foundation of preserving low country flora and fauna. That's what the mission that the Huntington set aside for Brook Green. So that's where we there we go. That's where we went next. So we started, I made the trip across the Berkeley. They were happy to do that. They were, of course, happy to help with this project. Now, in the meantime, at that very same meeting, I got called down when I was proposing this. Somebody told a botanist said, we just don't know how to preserve seaweed amaranth. There's no way to maintain this plant in the future. And I took great issue with that. They're like, so there's so many people that are just really like, let's just give up on it. Well, I mean, is there a future for it in a world of climate change and rising sea levels and coastal development? It's not like we don't do this for other threatened and endangered species, like loggerhead sea turtles. There are hundreds and hundreds of volunteers that hit the beach all up and down the southeastern coast every morning at dawn because they're invested in making sure that sea turtles stay around. And my argument is, why not do that for a plant? Plants matter too, right? Yeah, and you don't want an easy sell on this, by the way. I don't think I have to argue the point too much with y'all. But so that's what we've been doing. So working, and this would not work without the wonderful folks at Brook Green, and give special mention to Carrie Rapp at the greenhouse, who's been incredible to work with to grow these plants. So originally we only had a few seeds. So the first thing the wonderful folks at Brook Green did was grow those first plants out to increase the brood, decrease the seed base, so they could then grow plants. We did find though after a couple of years, because keep in mind, all of those seeds I originally had came from the last one single plant. So what happened overnight? Yeah, we started to see very low germination, very low seed production. So we were afraid that was going to be the end of the project, but we approached the Fish and Wildlife Service and explained our predicament. They were happy to help. So it turns out they maintain a seed base at the North Carolina Botanical Garden. They want to keep it away from the coast, because hurricane. And they gave us access to seeds from other beaches and wildlife refuges. They just asked that we basically from mid-Atlantic to the south, like the New England ones genetically a little bit different. And once we did that, we've had incredible production. So every year we do a big reintroduction at the park, trying to involve local school children as much as possible. And generally, Brook Green would grow us about 150 plants on average. And y'all were super ambitious this year. I probably sat down with Carrie, we added up how many plants y'all produced this year. Anybody want to venture a guess? 650. Yeah, it's more plants than I can even put in the ground. Every time I turn around, Carrie's like, oh, by the way, you got some more plants come over here. Like, really? So yeah, and I very much appreciate all's hard work, but it's a lot of plants to deal with. But anyway, so that in a nutshell is a little bit about the Sea Beach Amaranth restoration project ongoing at the park, and we want to continue doing this. It's a great way, as long as our partners at Brook Green are willing to do it. And like I said, they've been fantastic to work with. Thank you all very much for your help. And it's a way to get school kids involved actively in conservation projects at the park. Yes.
Why are they doing it at the Myrtle Beach State Park?
So it's not, the reason that they're doing it at Huntington is because we were the last place it was growing in the wild.
I can also answer that too, is that initial project, we got plants and we planted them. Part of the way that Mike was saying that Sea Beach Amaranths continue on, especially with your seed bank, is Huntington is a really different beach than ours. We're a lot more stable beach. And so we don't have a lot of the influx of tides and flooding into our sand dunes to carry the seed bank down. And so we've never found plants after this first.
This place does not like stability.
Yeah.
It's stability.
We might be a crazy park and a small park, but we're a very stable sand dunes.
Yeah. Sea Beach Amaranth is not interested in stability.
Yeah.
No, it's not what it does. So are there any other questions about Sea Beach Amaranth? Sorry, yeah.
Blossom, or is it strictly foliage?
Technically it does, but you would need a microscope pretty much, or a very strong magnifying glass. And it produces little tiny seeds. So people ask me to describe the seeds. Imagine if Barbie doll had some lima beans, some very dark brown lima beans. That's about the size of them. They're very tiny. And in fact, when we were first doing this, one of the ways we captured, because the seeds are so tiny, they get lost easily. This was actually recommended by April, the botanist. She said, go out and buy pantyhose and wrap those around the plant. So this is the most interesting thing I've ever bought on my state procurement card. I was just hoping somebody from finance was gonna ask me, because I thought it'd be a great story. But darn it, nobody did. Nobody batted on. And we used the pantyhose around to capture the seeds. But at this point, we've got a lot of seeds. So they've got Berkeley's staff that's so great and successful at growing those plants. Yeah.
So can you then store these seeds since you've now got so many
We
plants?
Yeah, so some are the Fish and Wildlife asked, so we sent some to the North Carolina Botanical Garden for safekeeping. Like I said, they wanted somewhere to keep them away from the coast, that keep, in case it disappears and they have to do another large scale reintroduction. To my knowledge, these reintroductions are not going on anywhere else other than national wildlife refuges. And they are dealing mostly with actually putting seeds in like heat pellets out on the beach and seeing what happens with them. We're the only ones actually still putting out plants. And like I said, that's only possible because of the wonderful folks at Berkeley. I was at a conference this past winter and actually had somebody from the National Park Service come up to me and go, are you the guy who watered seabeach amaranth? And like, I don't think I've ever had that title before, but we do have a lot of, we are very fortunate having the interns and volunteers. And so once we put the plants out, we do give them at least a few initial waterings. One when we first put them in, and then another one a few days later, just to get them established. And usually we find that that's sufficient.
Are you finding that it's reseeding itself in the area or are you having?
So some years, yes, and some years, no. And that's what hoping y'all are going to out. So we get a few so when we first started this, we're putting them at the main South Beach access because that's our most heavily used beach access, because that's where most of the parking facilities are. But what we're finding is all the naturally recruited plants were south of that. And that was already near the border with North Litchfield. And our fear was that the plants and the seeds are going to wind up outside of the park in areas where they were not protected. So this year, having an abundance of plants and spread them all up and down the beach, hoping to get better distribution, hopefully better seed distribution as well. So I have one last slide. I'm going to totally reverse course real quick. And I just want to mention a plant because this has been in the news lately. So y'all may have seen the report that the Department of Natural Resources put out about monarch butterflies in South Carolina. So everybody, we've all been trained to believe that they all migrate to Mexico. Apparently they do not all migrate to Mexico, especially on the coast of South Carolina. And that report mentioned two specific plants that are an important reason why they think this plant can survive, why monarchs can survive year-round in South Carolina. And so one of them was aquatic milkweed growing in swamps that are inaccessible to people. So it's important to plant that. And this is one that was actually first introduced to me by Billy McCord, who is a retired fisheries biologist with DNR, who is easily South Carolina's top expert on the monarch butterfly. So I was actually participating in a monarch hacking training that he was doing at Folly Beach, and he introduced me to this plant. I'm a marine biologist. I grew up on the salt. I had no idea this plant even existed. I thought seabeach amaranth was obscure. So golf course swallowwort is a natural. This is a native vine. Despite the name, it is also found on the East Coast, from the Florida Keys to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Now, there are a couple of other invasive swallowworts. This is not it. This is the one that's native here. It is in the milkweed family. And it's a vine. Milkweed vine is another common name for it. It doesn't look much like a milkweed in this state, but if you break the stem, it has the white sap that comes out. And when it goes to seed, the seed pods look exactly like a milkweed pod. And once again, our friends at Berkeley were very successful in taking cuttings that were collected by Olivia Bueno, who's a biologist with the Department of Natural Resources. She collected these down in Charleston and fine staff at Brookgreen rooted them for us, and then we started planting them around the nature center. They are now self-seeding. I find more monarch caterpillars on this vine than I do on milkweed. So I just wanted to mention that because it has been in the news lately. I've been seeing posts on Facebook and also seeing people like, oh no, that's an invasive plant, kill it. Like, no, you're confused. You're thinking there are other swallowworts that are invasive. This is not it. All right. And that is all I have for y'all this evening. Thank you so much for your kind attention. I look forward to seeing y'all out at the park on Saturday. Thank you.
You too much, Mike. This is a perfect example of why common names are terrible. There are two species of plants. They're more prevalent in the Northeast than I think they are down here, that are called swallowwort, also called dog strangler vine, that are in a completely different genus, that are very invasive. And so that has definitely caused a lot of confusion. It's a completely different plant. But yeah.
Can you just give a quick update for the week, field trip this weekend?
Yeah, it's in the.
Is it in the?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Don't worry, I'm gonna make you stand up again. I'll do plant of the month first. Okay. All right, and with that, we're gonna switch gears slightly to plant of the month. But since we are on Sea Beach Amaranth this week, this month, and seemingly this year, I decided to do a beach plant, a very important beach plant called sea oats or Uniola paniculata. This is a perennial grass found on the dunes of all of the beaches on the East Coast, southern East Coast. It gets to be about 4 to 6 feet tall, especially once the flower heads come out. It has some narrow leaves, and it likes full sun. It tolerates drought, but it can also tolerate inundation from salt water, obviously, since it's a dune plant. And as I said, it has a coastal distribution. This is only found on the coast. There is a related species that is an inland forest land species that is Uniola latifolia, also called oats. And that one, like I said, it grows in forested habitats where it's more moist and shady, and as opposed to this one, which grows in a much more extreme, dry, sunny, windy, salty habitat. These are the flowers and the fruits. If you think it looks like oats, it's because it's related to the oats that we eat. They're in the same family, and which is why it's called sea oats. They're really pretty. I think, they start off as this kind of greenish color, and then they turn this more bronze color in the fall. And I even read some sources, some people will use them in dried flower arrangements. The leaves are super narrow. They're less than 1 inch wide, and they can be up to 2 feet long. They're kind of distinguished by this yellowness here with a red stem, and then they wrap around. So here's the other side there. They will root, so if the stem kind of bends over and then touches the sand, it will root on the ground. And it does have some wildlife value. Marsh rabbits apparently like to eat it, and it's also a favorite of song sparrows and a bunch of other types of sparrows and red-winged blackbirds. But primarily, this plant is extremely important for beach stabilization and dune preservation. It is, like I said, it's extremely tolerant to the sandy, dry habitats. It can handle that salt spray and even salt inundation. It has a really deep taproot, and so that helps reach down and get some moisture, but it also helps stabilize the dunes. But it also creates rhizomes that go horizontally, so it actually stabilizes the dunes in 2 different ways. And they're a really big sea oat restoration projects. I think Florida even has an adopt a sea oat program. So you can actually donate money to help fund programs to help grow and plant out sea oats. They do produce seed, and I read that they're pretty easy to grow from seed, but they're primarily propagated through root divisions. And that's our plant of the month. I just thought it would be neat to tie the sort of beach theme together. And it's a really beautiful plant. I mean, if you've ever been out to the beaches here, you've seen it. It grows pretty much in every dune we have. And it's a protected species in a lot of states. Is it protected in South Carolina? Because it is in North Carolina. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, it can handle these really crazy extreme habitats, but it can't handle vehicle traffic. It can't handle people walking on it. So that's why you always see the dunes cordoned off so that these plants can grow and help keep the dunes stabilized. Any questions? I did such a good job. I couldn't find any insect, something's got to eat it, but I couldn't find any good records of it. It was hard enough to find the stuff about the birds and because everything is about dune restoration about this plant, like all of the online information, all the research. So there isn't as much, but I'm guessing something uses it.
We'll say, it doesn't eat it, but when is it, it's in the fall sometimes, like a 2-week time period where the dragonfly migration is just all over the dune. And, you know, it's just really amazing that the right, like 2-week time period, you go down, especially in the evening, and there's just dragonflies just zooming down right over the dune line. It's really amazing.
And it would make a really good perch. I mean, dragonflies
so
really
they
love
use
to
that.
sit up on high open spots. So I'm sure that, yeah. And maybe it harbors other small insects that the dragonflies eat. I'm just speculating now, but sounds like a graduate or a doctorate research project for somebody. All right. Upcoming events. Now.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that we do have a field trip coming up this weekend. And when I checked, we still had plenty of spaces available. If anyone would like to join, we'll send out the Eventbrite registration page as a follow-up. It's this Saturday starting at 7 a.m., which I know is early, but we're getting out there to beat the heat. And as we heard in Mike's presentation, this really is the only time of year if you want to see sea beach amaranth and help with its conservation, because it's such a, you know, short-lived annual. So this is the time, and we'll meet at Huntington Beach State Park. We'll wait, we did this before.
And we didn't fix it.
Don't drive to Hunting Island. And Ranger Mike is gonna take us out on the beach.
It's better now.
So if you would like to join the field trip, we'll be helping with some citizen science, monitoring the sea beach amaranth, and then we'll also take a trip to the pollinator garden at the Nature Center and talk about their conservation efforts, but also some challenges they've had with king tides, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I were just trying to deal with climate change.
Yeah, so it'll be a really fun field trip. Like I said, plenty of space available if you'd like to join.
A registration is on Eventbrite. It would have gone out in the last newsletter. Did we send it on the newsletter? Yeah. And then there's also an event page on the South Carolina Native Plant Society page as well.
I came a little late, so where do we come in March when we come? Where should we park?
Mayor Mike.
It'll be at the North Beach access. So when you come into the park, you're going over the causeway, you're gonna take a left, going down past the Marsh Boardwalk, past the Nature Center, all the way down that last parking lot.
Yeah, if you
That's where we
are,
will be meeting. Yes.
if you are registered, keep an eye out for an email from me tomorrow morning with instructions.
All right, do we have information on August green drinks, Kara or Maeve? Sorry.
Stay tuned.
Okay,
Yeah, so for our August field trip, it really is the hottest time of year. So instead of, going out on like a nature walk and melting, we want to have an evening social as part of the Green Drink series, which is a rotating monthly happy hour. So the Native Plant Society will host. We are still trying to lock down what restaurant and date that's going to be at, but we'll send that out as soon as possible.
and just a reminder, we are continuing the schedule of having a meeting every other month with a newsletter in between. So our next meeting will be the third Thursday in September, which is September 21st. Mark your calendars, save the date. This is where you'll be. Oh, she changed the slide on me. So we are planning a native plant market. One of the missions of the South Carolina Native Plant Society is to advocate for the use of plants in the native landscape and gardens, but if you don't have access to them, that's pretty hard to do. So we are going to try to work on increasing access to the community and getting native plants to you all. And so we have submitted a special use permit to the city of Conway, and we are scheduling it for October 7th. It is a Saturday. And yeah, we're super excited about this opportunity for everybody, but we are wondering if folks are interested in getting involved. We're probably going to need volunteers to help us with some of the planning aspects of this, probably some volunteers on the day of the event to help vendors load and unload and to help customers and potentially do tabling and things of that nature. So I do have a sign up sheet next to the sign in for the meeting. There's a notebook there. So if you're interested, please put your name and your email address and we'll form a committee and let's get this thing rocking and rolling. And the Native Plant Society has an annual meeting every single year. It's hosted by the different chapters. This year it will be hosted by the Midlands chapter in the Columbia area. It is part meeting of the whole membership where new officers get elected and we do annual reports and things like that, but it also usually includes vendors. It includes speakers and things like that. We went to the one in Chiraw last fall. You didn't go. It was Kara. Last fall, and that was a really great event. So it's just nice to get to know some of the members from other chapters and network with them as well. And that way you have faces to the names. And so that'll be Saturday, November 4th at Saluda Shoals Park in Columbia. And Sudi, do we have any updates?
Not really any updates except keep up the campaign. Don't forget to sign the petition, you see on the left, and forward it to people other you think might sign the petition. And I don't know if everybody doing their emailing, let me go over the.
Sure.
Everybody familiar with the issue about so Lewis Ocean Bay is a heritage preserve, revive field trips, and there's sort of some threats nearby. One is a hospital being proposed to be built across the road, which is going to limit fish fry burning, which is going to be detrimental to their habitat and other species there. So there's just a couple of campaigns. We have a petition to sign. That's the Friends of Lewis Ocean Bay has that on their website. And then there's also, we have our campaign in Plant Society that Kara came up with, CLOB, where you can post your photos and tag our council people and Moore Hospital and the take action. I guess that's on our website. We have some, so all that is available on the website. But then there's something else I just wanted to mention. I don't know if everybody saw in the news the story about Marietta Frazier that did the big painting out at Lucerne Bay.
It was so good.
But if you want to Google it, I brought it up. It's you look up Mary Edna Frazier, and it's on WPD. WPD posted it, but there's a video and a really great story. But Travers, I think, listening, or he's not there, but he had.
Trapper just chimed in to say that we have 18,789 people on the petition so far.
Wow.
So let's keep that number rising.
Share it, and then check out that thing about Mary Edna Frazier. She did this giant painting, and her deal is she does paintings to shine a spotlight on conservation issues through her art. So that's a really cool story. Maybe Pepper might share like that.
He did in the chat. I think he did. Okay. And we're to member updates. This is a chance for y'all to update us with any anything you've got going on, any ideas you have, anything at all, thoughts, concerns?
I'm deadheading my garden and I've got seeds from all sorts of weird stuff over there. Most of it is native. The one that isn't is marked. Help yourself, please.
Yeah, we've got seed envelopes and stuff over there, so.
I just want to say, I'm just so appreciative of all the work you all. Phenomenal how much has happened since I came. And I really thank you all.
Well, thank you. We can't do it without the membership. Anybody else? Oh. Didn't hear what part. Cheryl just thanked us for all the hard work that we have done, and Dia has graciously brought us seeds from her garden, native seeds, to share with everyone, and they're over on the table. So sorry, folks who are virtual, but and that's all we have for you. I know finishing up a little early tonight, but you all are welcome to forage through the seeds and mingle amongst yourselves and talk with us if you want. That's all.
Please
Thank
don't
you.
forget to sign in on the sign-in sheet. Didn't do that already.
Yeah,
Yes.
Thanks, Judy.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.